Now, let's go swiftly to the legal eagle himself, Lionel, a New York lawyer. If I was ever in trouble, there's only one man I'd hire. It is the one and only Lionel. So good that, like Madonna, he only goes by one name, Lionel. How wonderful to see you again. I mean, every cloud has a silver lining. Yeah.
Would that I were able to explicate, to limn, describe with any degree of accuracy how my heart swells, not only seeing you, but gracing the portals of the mother of all talk shows. I am beside myself. Thank you. You have no idea how many people. I have a dear friend, Declan, from Ireland, who called me, says, "You know George Galloway?" I said, "Know him." I said, "I taught him everything he knows, but not everything I know." Proceed, sir.
I told you he was mellifluous. I told you he was erudite. I told you he was coruscating. Well, he'll be coruscating on the next bit, I can assure you. Because I read his missives every single day. I actually read Lionel every day. And so should you. And we'll explain later how you can do so. Because every cloud has a silver lining, Lionel. Trump's under a cloud, but the silver lining is that it's right next door to you, and you'll be able to illuminate a very big canvas using that as this brush. Tell us, first of all, for those who don't follow you yet, what's your general take on the attempt to prosecute Trump on this case?
With all due respect to banana republics, absolute banana republic, it is the most scurrilous, the most antithetical to this, George, and I hold this up with all love. This is our Constitution. This is the only thing. This is my Bible. This is the only thing that I, as an American citizen and lawyer, care about. Not politics, not ideology, not this left-right paradigm, not this nonsense. Imagine this, George. You are about to be elevated to most certainly the candidate, the nominee for 2024. He would be the second president after Grover Cleveland to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. And right before this happens, this prosecutor, a George Soros-funded dupe, an apparatchik, a robot, an automaton, a quisling, he files a charge that no one who has even a paucity of understanding of the legal system in our jurisprudential history can understand how he could do this. Now, let me say something. President Trump is looking at 6 total events, pieces of exposure, cases, potential crimes, civil and criminal. It's a litany, 6. Now, this is the first one and by far the weakest. And George, as I've always pledged to you, I'm going to tell you the truth. Now, while the president may do very well with this one, it's the second and third that I fear very much for him. Because as you know, I always tell people, you cannot live a good life in this country without committing at least 3 felonies by the time you're 30. Everybody has committed crimes. Everybody. But the thing is, you haven't been charged, or somebody didn't think it was worthwhile in view of the totality of the demise of civilization to charge you with spitting on the sidewalk or whatever it is. However, George, I've never seen anything like this man in my life. He pulls from people 2 different reactions. Absolute love, an unending, Abrobdingnagian, an inane love to the point of a cult worship, or a kind of a sadomasochistic loathing that even hits almost, George, the fetish level. They are alive by their hate. It gives them reason. Their raison d'etre. They hate, therefore they are. I mean, he does it. There's nobody in between. There's no no, or meh, when it comes to Donald Trump. He is brash, he's brazen, he's churlish, he's boorish. But George, there is not a politician in my lifetime. And we thought Reagan was good. We thought certainly Bill Clinton was good, but nobody like him. Now, let me also just remind you as to this first case, what he is charged with, and you knowing politics, you would get this. Imagine, George, if for some particular reason, and I know this is ridiculous to even think this, but let's assume you had some dalliance, and for whatever reason, you decided that you didn't want the world to know about this, and you entered into an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. Legal, it is the thing of Hollywood. There's nothing wrong with it. But in this particular case, I, as your factotum, your dimbox, your amanuensis, your man Friday, I decide I'm going to pay this woman, and then maybe later on you can reimburse me for that. Is that against the law? No, it's not. However, because you're running for office, one could construe, George, that payment that I, through this Rube Goldberg type of labyrinthine concoction, this contraption, if you will, I've come up with this transaction, and it would benefit you politically, as a lot of things would. So therefore, one could construe it's kind of like an in-kind contribution. And through this duct-taped, chicken-wired, kind of a cobbled-together Frankenstein monster trying to revivify a case that everybody has passed on, which, by the way, ended in 2017, a year after the election. Let me say this again. After. That is the basis for this. Not only that, the statute of limitations, the period of time in which the state has to bring the charges against you, that has clearly lapsed. So it is a dog. It is, nobody can understand how this even happens. But are you familiar with what Mr. George Soros has done? He's the benefactor of many prosecutors to advance this criminal legal studies. You've heard of criminal race theory, or this not criminal. It was an interesting pun. Critical race theory. Yes, and I might have been right the first time, but there are these new ways of thinking, George, in which this new vision of law enforcement is to let people go. This thing called restorative justice, where, George, you, the man who hit you, the man who bludgeoned you, the man who stabbed you, who robbed you, who burgled your home, who destroyed your life, George, it doesn't serve society at all to penalize him, to incarcerate him in this carceral hell. No, we want to bring him back and you together in this restorative reunion. It is sheer lunacy. That is the man. This is a man who downgraded 40 to 50% of all felonies in New York City to let these miscreants, these poor misunderstood people. But when it comes to Donald Trump, he's Torquemada, he's Beria. Remember Stalin's Beria? Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. He's Cesare More. He's Mussolini's man. I mean, this is medieval. And I'm sorry, I'm taking over your show, and I don't mean to, but I'm very passionate about this.
No, you're not. It is dazzling, and I'm suitably dazzled. Does that mean then that Donald Trump's going to walk free from this one?
He very well could. He will be doing, even if he's found guilty or pleads guilty, there's no jail even remotely possible for this. They charge him with 34 counts, 34 instances of the same event. If you take a piece of anything and you chop it up into 34 pieces, it's still that thing. But George, let me talk about the reality here. And again, knowing politics, I ask my friends, do you think Donald Trump really wants to go back to the White House? Do you think he really wants to subject his wife, his son, his family to go back to that city, to go back to that tomb, that jail, to go through this again? I'm sorry. I don't know how anybody in their right mind could think that's possible. There is a part, George, of him where Donald Trump loves to be Donald Trump. Keep in mind something. This is a man who in the 80s was the biggest thing in New York. I mean, the toast of the town. You couldn't, he was on every show. He was at every cocktail party, never drank, but he was it. They loved him. He decided he was going to go into TV. He did a show called The Apprentice, went to #1, 16 years in a row, out of nowhere. Then he says, I'm going to run for office. They said, city council, parks commission, no, president. And they laughed. He went after the biggest, the pantheon, if you will, of the biggest Republican firebrands and powerhouses, including Jeb Bush, from the oldest family, and he destroyed them. Then he went after Hillary Clinton and made mincemeat out of her, and he won. And I'm going to suggest something to you, which I tell people this. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am, what Gore Vidal says, a conspiracy analyst. And I ask you this question. Do you think that if the shadow government, the ruling class, whoever runs the world, wanted Hillary Clinton to win, that they could have arranged this? I'll save you the time. Yes, absolutely. They would have done something. She's a formidable opponent. Every poll said she was going to win, but she didn't. He won. Next question. Could the state of affairs, could this degree of decay that we're going through as a culture and as a country, could that have happened without Donald Trump being in office for 4 years to soup up and rev up every lunatic, every barely connected to reality, harebrained, schizoid, demented loon? No. He stirred the pot, which made the next iteration, the next salvo, the next, version of this insanity even possible. I respectfully submit that it is not beyond the realm of reason to think that he served a very important purpose, and that is to make everything, to soften up the country so that his replacement could be a wizened, dotard, decrepit, hobbled by decrepitude, dotage, a man who walks around yelling, who ordered the veal cutlet? A man who, a friend of mine says, would you let Joe Biden drive you home from the airport? And I said, no. And there you go. We wouldn't be there. Do you know, George, we have a man who is a senator, bless his heart. By the way, I'm from the South, and whenever somebody says, bless his heart, that's not good. If somebody said, you know that George Galloway, he's not the brightest man, but bless his heart, not good. We have a man in Pennsylvania named George Fetterman, who had a series of strokes. He is aphasic. He can't speak. He can't read. He can't comprehend. I'm not trying to mock him. He's a United States senator. He left to be hospitalized for depression so severe he had to be hospitalized. They brought him out, and he's back again. And instead of people saying, you know, George, with all due respect, we don't think you possess the requisite wherewithal to be a senator. No. The left says, isn't he something? Isn't he a tribute? Tribute to what? I don't know. I have some wonderful relatives that I would not want as a U.S. senator. So now we have a dotard as president who imagines things. George, you don't understand this. We thought Dan Quayle was stupid because he couldn't spell potato. This makes Dan Quayle look like Ed Witten, some supersymmetry particle physicist. This is our president. We have a vice president who has hebephrenia, pseudobulbar affected cachinnations, these weird guffaws, inappropriate, these laughs and howls and cackles, an inability to understand the simplest of concepts, and a most unique ability to describe nothing. That's our second in command. We have a White House correspondent who, by the way, makes them all look like something from the old Vic. We have a woman who has no idea. And we have a U.S. senator who is aphasic. I am convinced that one of these days we're going to have people, either through AI or AGI, who are basically dead, clinically dead in a number of states, who are going to be elected. And we will sit back and we'll say, isn't that wonderful? And I'm saying, but he's dead. No. As Monty Python would say, he's stunned. I am so embarrassed. I'm living in a world right now, and I'm thinking to myself, is it me? Am I missing the point here? Do you ever think sometimes, George, you hear a music, hear a band or something, or you eat something, you think, hey, they like this? This is horrible. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm living in a parallel universe. Maybe the joke's on me. Maybe one day they're going to wake up and say, okay, we're kidding. I mean, this is beyond, and they say that Donald Trump, when he was president, people loved him. He knew how to handle Putin, Xi Jinping, Middle East. I don't, he was, in some respects, if he was a savant, I have no idea. But all I know is they won. There's no need to cry, George. No need to lacrimate. It is okay. This will be over soon. This will be over soon. Promise you. So anyway, I'm here and I'm questioning my sanity because I don't know what the hell's going on here. George, we have right now, listen to this. You have a beautiful family. And I've seen pictures, and you're a lovely, lovely man, lovely wife. Imagine your kids one day at a school when all of a sudden some 6'5" John Waters monster, this dystopian drag queen with phallic accoutrement and appurtenances coming in, gyrating in front of your children. And you're saying, wait a minute, I don't think this is appropriate. You transphobic, you hateful. No, these are children. Children sometimes they don't even know what their favorite color is, George. Your children can say things like, I'm Batman, I'm a girl, I'm a boy. Yeah, okay. Get back with me. They say things. Imagine you and your wife saying, I know just the doctor, and off your daughter goes for a hysterectomy, a mastectomy, or your son gets an orchiectomy, a penectomy, I'm just puberty blocking. Applied by the most prestigious hospitals in the UK. And people are lauding this. And you're thinking, is this a parallel universe? What is happening here? What happened to my country? And people are saying, isn't this wonderful? No, it's not wonderful. Oh, you're a right-wing lunatic. You're transphobic. This is what we're going through right now. We have open borders. We have crime. We had Asians absolutely targeted by street ruffians and miscreants, and our mayor, who, by the way, covers the excitement spectrum from A to B, an oaf in his own right, looks the other way, and I'm thinking to myself, this is crime. We're not talking about subtlety. So my great country, theoretically, under the auspices of this wonderful Constitution, is an insane asylum. And as Sarah Huckabee Sanders says, Americans have a choice between either normal or crazy. We have crazy people running this country. I mean, crazy lunatics. There's nothing that I can say to even begin to explain the degree of depravity of which I live.
Not many people leave me speechless, Lionel, but you just did. It was a tour de force, a tour de horizon,
a tour de farce
of a tour of farce. Did you see Peter Sellers' last film, Being There?
Being There.
And Chance, the gardener.
Chance, I like to watch, Ben. I like to watch. Yes.
I like to watch. It's funny that that's the line that I remember most also. But if you see
remember? Yeah, yes. Oh.
Did you see the outtakes of Peter Sellers trying to keep a straight face during some of these scenes?
I did recall that.
Their weight in gold.
Do you remember when he walked on the water?
That's what we're looking at.
Do you also remember?
Yeah.
You remember at the end, what was the music that was playing at the end? It was Eomer Deodato playing also Spock, the 2001 theme, which they said there was a Kubrick kind of a connection into it. And I have watched that so many times. One of my favorite scenes, and this was also prescient, Vatic, dare I say, Pythonic, is that when he was being robbed, he pulled out his remote control, his clicker, and he tried to change the channel because his world was a TV screen, and it was one of my favorites. That, of course, The Godfather, the movie Network changed my life, and Fatso with Dom DeLuise was one of my favorites. I don't have a very deep list of favorite movies, but I'm with you in that. And I also think, George, there's something that's interesting. My favorite is when people bring up, and I find this so interesting, one of my areas of fascination is the Holocaust, specifically how seemingly rational people could not necessarily involve themselves in the obliteration of humanity, but know about it and just kind of say, well, And I've always been fascinated by Gustave Le Bon and the notion of murmurations. I love to watch starlings and schools of fish and how they all fly in unison in order to conserve energy and to protect each other. That's what we do. And we can all of a sudden, when I was a kid, we had a show, Bullwinkle, and it was Boris and Natasha. And this was post-Cold War. And so help me God, when people talk about Russia and Zelensky and Ukraine, I think they're hearkening back to Boris and Natasha. Drago, Rocky, Khrushchev with the shoe. This portrayal of Russians is despicable, very unattractive, mean, perpetually dyspeptic. They always say Putin is a thug. And I'm saying, what do you know about him? Well, in 1962, 90 miles from the coast of Florida is this place called Cuba. And the Russians decided to keep some missiles there. We almost went to World War III over that, and nobody thought anything of it. And I explained, let me show you this map. This is Russia. This is Ukraine. This is the border. This is the border. Not only that, we don't understand the idea of intermarriage or whatever. And people will say, well, that's different. Why? Because that's Putin. And I'm thinking, did you learn that? I'm sorry, we're going into that now. I'm just,
no,
it reminds me of
they
being
didn't
there.
learn it. They murmurated. They sailed
Right.
off like a school of particularly doltish fish. I'll tell you what, Lionel, we're going to have to put this interview out as a special because it's been really special, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for it, for coming on the mother of all talk shows. But we must go because there's so much more still to do. Is Trump more or less likely to be the next POTUS? It's overwhelming. 81% say more. 87% say more. Telegram, 85% say more. YouTube community, 83% say more.